Yo, what is up, everybody? It's your boy Soto here with all the Windbags, back with another one. Okay, despite what conventional wisdom might say, and despite what a lot of people in the media are saying, because I don't think the people in the media really kick a lot of wisdom anyway, what is the deal with Pete Carroll and his goal for this season? A lot of differing reports, a lot of differing opinions. We're going to get into that. Before we do, I want to make sure everyone please to like, comment, and subscribe to this video. It's an excellent way to support. It's free to do, and it's the minimum you could do support besides just watch the video. Guys, if you have any questions or comments or concerns, or you want to talk about something a little bit different, go ahead and hit me up on the super chat, and we'll go ahead and get those taken care of. All right, let's get started. So, what really piqued my interest about this subject is Pete Carroll, in one of his latest press conferences, said that he's not here. I'm paraphrasing, of course. He's not here to just win a couple of more games or to just get a little bit better. He's here to take it as far as you can take it. Okay, that can have a couple of different meanings. But for me, taking it as far as you can take it, it means to me is the Super Bowl. Because in the NFL, there's no other there's no further to take it other than going to the Super Bowl. Um, a lot of people are talking about some of the movements and some of the moves that John Spytek has done to suggest that the Raiders' ultimate goal is just to steady the ship and for improvement and to get better. It seems to me like the overall goal of John Spytek and Pete Carroll uh, align mostly. I think Pete Carroll is trying to, and you should, as a head coach, you want to win as much as you can right away. You don't know, although Pete Carroll does have a little cachet and he has a little bit more juice, right? Um, the head coach is going to want to win right now because ultimately you don't know. Get this out of the way here. Ultimately, you don't know as a head coach how much longer you actually have to be a coach if you're not winning. As a general manager goes, you want to be a guy that is setting yourself up to win now, but not necessarily at the expense of the future, unless you have the ability to win it all right now, like a huge win. Um, for right now, I think John Spytek is doing everything he can to put the Raiders in a position to win as much as they can right now without mortgaging the future. Like, for example, one of the big moves that was done by Pete Carroll and John Spytek was getting Geno Smith via trade. Well, it's not like they traded their own third round. They still had a third round pick. They traded the third round pick that they got for Devontae Adams. That's part of it. Where they yes, I am improving to win now, but I'm not going to give up a bunch to get that. There is the multiple trade backs in the second round. Now, again, I am fully convinced, right, that the Raiders were looking at either Jaden Higgins or Will Johnson in their two stabs at an early third round pick. Unfortunately, those players were already taken. Jaden Higgins was taken before the Raiders picked in the third round. The first pick, they traded back. And then when Will Johnson was taken before. Uh, I'm sorry, in the second round. Will Johnson was taken before they had to pick in the second round after they traded back. So they traded back again. Those two trade backs netted them two more third round picks and a fourth round instead of a fifth round pick. And they were able to make good use of those picks. But when you take a look at all this together, you have to take a look at the mindset going into these things. Pete Carroll is a large part of what happened on draft day. I know that John Spytek is the GM. I don't think he's like a Mike Mayock or anything like that. I think he's an actual GM who is calling most of the shots. I do think there is heavy input from Pete Carroll, not just in the style and type of player, but a lot of times maybe in the player itself. He has been in rooms that have built a lot of things up from pretty much nothing. He took over a USC program that was very poor for quite a few years and brought them to prominence. He took over a Seahawks team who, um, maybe 5 or 6 years before he got there, they had gone to, or a couple of years before, they'd gone to a Super Bowl, but they were on hard times, man. They were on hard times, baby, after Mike Holmgren left. So what we're looking at here is it Super Bowl or bust for Pete Carroll? I honestly think that it is, as far as in his own mind. I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust as far as are the Raiders going to get rid of him if he doesn't go to the Super Bowl? Definitely not. But the mindset of Pete Carroll is, yes, we can win with a few adjustments right now. Let's take a look at what Pete Carroll has done in his life, in his career lately when he's won championships, so in college and the pros. What has he done to assemble things, to assemble a team or a group of people to be able to win that? First off, he's always had an excellent coaching staff. I mean, I'm talking like four or five different offensive coordinators at USC went on to be head coaches at other schools, other programs. On top of that, we're looking at the defensive side of the ball. He was the pseudo defensive coordinator, but a lot of his defensive coordinators and defensive coaches went on to become defensive coordinators and coaches at other places as well. So his coaching staffs at USC specifically, but also in Seattle, were coaching staff. You take a look at the Dan Quinns and the McDonald, all these different guys, the Castillo. There's a lot of a lot of coaches that coached on Pete Carroll's staffs that bumped up to be big time coaches at other locations. So that's the first thing, and that's the thing that I think is often overlooked when it comes to a Pete Carroll kind of a turnover. He had great coaching staffs. Okay, he had great coaching staff to be able to take over and take a lot of the weight off of him as a head coach. It's very seldom that you get a coach like a John Gruden type, or even a Josh McDaniels type, who are so micromanaging on everything that they don't let those coaches kind of flourish. Pete Carroll is not like that. Now, don't get me wrong. Pete Carroll is involved in every single situation, but he does lay forth a kind of game plan and for his coaches to be able to play at and to coach at their best. Excuse me. So that's number one. So has he done that with the Raiders? I believe so. He has a nice group of offensive coaches he brought in. He kept a couple of guys. Same thing on the defensive end. He mostly kept a lot of the defensive coaches, but he's assembling a strong group of coaches on both sides of the ball. So there's one thing there. Another thing is he had a quarterback that he can count on, whether it be, the Carson Palmers of the world or the Matt Leinerts of the world or anyone you're looking at. And you look at Russell Wilson with the Seattle days. He had a quarterback that you can count on to perform at the right time. Just so happens that you have two Heisman Trophy winners with USC as far as quarterbacks go. So those are very productive players and that performed really big in big moments. And then also you have a Russell Wilson who at his heyday, he was one of the more clutch quarterbacks in the NFL. Now, on top of that, well, let's stick with the quarterback for a second. Quarterback, you have a guy that Pete Carroll really genuinely does believe in Geno Smith. I don't think Geno Smith was given a lot to work with last season. On top of that, I'm going to say, despite what he had to work with as far as a very poor offensive line, he was like he was pressured to the third highest in the NFL on his throws. So it was like more than a third of his throws he got pressure. So he was getting pressured left and right whenever he dropped back. He had a terrible running game, a lot of injuries to his running backs, and the defense started to slip a little bit. They gave up a lot of points. So what we're looking at here is, despite all of that, Geno Smith still put up pretty good numbers. Now, it doesn't have to be me or you or anyone else that thinks that Geno Smith can get the job done. The guy whose nuts are on the table, right? The guy whose game is on the line, Pete Carroll, he is in full belief that Geno Smith can get it done. So we have the coaching staff set. We have the quarterback set as far as for the plans to win right now with Pete Carroll. Now you're looking at weapons. Weapons-wise, I think that a lot of the guys on the outside are very similar to what he's had at SC. He has the big playmaker receiver, right? He has the small speedster. He has the possession guy who can go over the middle. He also, on top of that, has a superstar tight end. He had some decent tight ends when he was at SC. But the main thing is the dual running back attack. He always had multiple running backs. He would throw tons of running backs at you to make sure that you cannot, as a defense, could not take a breath. You always had another wave, another style, another a productive running back coming at you. That's what he has now with the drafting of Ashton Genty, the signing of Raheem Mostert. Give me 1 second. I'm talking a lot. All right. So you're seeing this all being put together. This goes to show you that there was a lot of collaboration in the building of this roster and the building of this squad as far as a coaching staff. You see a lot of the similarities that has worked for Pete Carroll in multiple places being put into motion right now. What you're looking at is this is something that Pete Carroll has won with doing at multiple spots. He's doing it again. So you have the only thing that I'm thinking of is that it may take a year or two is maybe the offensive line. He's always had very strong offensive lines, not only in the college ranks at SC, multiple first-round picks, but also a lot of guys in Seattle. He had a really strong offensive line as well. So what we want to take a look at here is the mailman right here. Welcome back. Right now, Colton Miller, got to pay that man, okay? Got to pay that man. He's one of the handful top 10 left tackles in the league. Even with a very poor start last season, he did have a pretty productive season overall, even with a rough start in the beginning of the year. Now, just to go to show you, Colton Miller hasn't been called for a holding call in 44 games. That's pretty impressive. So almost more than 2 years, he hasn't been called for a holding call. Almost 3. So we get to look at that. We really do have to take a look at what's happening in the interior of the offensive line. I think the only super solid, this guy's getting closer and closer. Look at him. The only super solid spots, I think, are at left tackle with Colton Miller and at center with Jackson Powers Johnson. I can see somebody getting bumped out of any of the other ones, as well as DJ Glaze played last season. He was called for 6 holding penalties. He was like 74th ranked tackle in the league. He was a rookie. I get it. He had multiple offensive coordinators. He had multiple offensive line coaches. I understand that. But that has nothing to do with Pete Carroll. Pete Carroll is going to put the best player on the field. Is that Thayer Mumford? Can he get his starting role back? Maybe. Is that like a Charles Grant? Can he show that he's able to take on the right tackle role? Possibly. What does that do for a DJ Glaze who was looked at as a player who can be an interior offensive lineman coming out of college because of what his perceived lack of lateral movement skills? What does that do? You also have Caleb Rogers. You have the newly signed Alex Kappa. You have Dylan Parham, Jordan Meredith. So there's a big log jam. There's these three positions. There's like 6, 7 dudes that are like vying for these three positions, which is good. That's what Pete Carroll wants. He wants that competition, right? So what we're looking at here is this is. I don't know that the offensive line is as simple as Colt Miller on the left side. You got Jackson Power Johnson in the middle. You have J.J. Glaze on the right side. You have Dylan, you have Alex Kappa taking over one of the guards, and you have Meredith and Parham vying for the other one. I just don't think that's as simple. I don't think it's as simple as that. Okay, I think it's a lot more complex than that because Pete Carroll always has strong offensive lines. He's not going to put up with any of this foolishness of holding penalties and all this stuff. He doesn't go for that. I hope you guys understand this. I watched every single home Pete Carroll USC game live. I was there. He does not put up with any foolishness on the offensive line. A guy's having a rough game, he pulls him out, puts another one in. Good luck getting your freaking job back. If that guy is playing well, he's going to stick with that guy. Very similar to what we're talking about right now. His margin for error is very thin, guys. So that's the one thing I think offensively that is a little bit more in flux. But I do have confidence that the best 5 are going to be put on the field. It could be Thayer Mumford at a guard position or at a tackle position or even DJ Glaze at a guard or who knows. But what we're looking at here is the best 5 are going to go. Pete Carroll is going to do that. He's not just going to default to what everyone thinks is going to happen. Can it turn out that way? Sure, but you know it's going to be the best 5 are going to be on the field. Now, on the defensive end, that's where it gets a little bit dicey. I want to start off with this. I don't fault John Spytek for not re-signing a bunch of guys. I just don't fault him for that. I think that the guys that we signed in free agency were very capable and comparable to the players that we lost at a much lower price tag, I might add. But there is a lot of wishing and hoping that these guys are performing pretty much at their peaks or very close to that. If you have 2 or 3 of these guys kind of maybe being below what they've proven in the past, this is going to be a pretty rough defense. We're going to have these guys plugged in, playing at their near or at their best. And the deal is, it's a lot of new guys and a lot of new faces. We're going to have probably two guys new at the corner position. We're going to have a new safety, 2 new linebackers. Yeah, it's going to be pretty rough. It's going to be pretty rough if 3 of those guys don't have close to their best years. I think Pete Carroll is a defensive-minded coach at his core. I know that he doesn't blitz a lot. He doesn't like to, at least, and his defenses really didn't blitz a whole hell of a lot. But I really do think that he wants to play very similar to how the defense played in the back half of the 2023 season, where you just let your 4 dogs go on the defensive line, and you play tight on the outside and force quick passes, and you jump them, and you're very aggressive. Because he plays that, or he plays that cover 3, where he has the 3 deep safeties to really kind of blanket everything, but he plays it kind of tight, and he's really tight over the middle with the linebacker. So this is the tough one for me here, because I don't know that the moves that they've made really scream to me win right now defense. Ultimately, what I'm seeing is, I do think that the Raiders are doing the best they can right now with filling the gaps with very capable players. I think that Jermaine Pratt signing really shows that they're really looking for a guy to come in on a good deal. They're not going to break the bank, okay? They still have about $35 million left in cap space. So I don't know if they're going to break the bank on a guy. but there still might be some guys out there available to him. I'm a little bit concerned. Defensive line, with or without Christian Wilkins, I don't think it's going to be a problem. I think Adam Butler is more than capable of putting pressure up the middle. I like the guys. I like Tofu. I like Luwalu. I like both of the rookies, Tonka and JJ Pegues. I like all those guys because they're very similar in their play where they're slashers. They get into the backfield. They make a lot of plays in the backfield. They're disruptors on the defensive line. These are not stack and shed guys. Well, maybe, Foku is, but the other guys are not stack and shed guys. These are dart and get into the backfield type disruptor type guys. So I'm very confident in this defensive line is going to be able to get pressure with just four, with Malcolm and Maxx Crosby on the outsides. Where I'm a little bit concerned is after Pratt, you have a guy that in Landon Roberts who's a little bit older, who maybe a little bit far away from his peak. I am very encouraged by Devin White. I do think Devin White is primed for a comeback season. He's healthy now. But for me, that front six, right? If you're playing a nickel, that front six has to be locked in, tightened up, because I do have concerns at the corner position. I don't have too many concerns in the safety position, but the corner position I do have a little bit of concern with. That is the only issue that I have with the Pete Carroll wanting to win now. Only because this defense I don't feel is at the level of a win now defense. And it's pretty apparent after you take a look at the secondary. I think Chin and Polo can only do so much in that secondary. You got Lonnie Johnson Jr. You got Lotto, right? Who is out there? Who is mostly a special teams guy who may be able to. Again, he has to play at his best in his career in order to make a big impact. You got guys like Stokes, and these guys were okay where they were, but you're asking them to do a lot more. And it kind of shows with what they're paying them. It's not like these guys are household names or anything like that. But I got, Darian Porter's out there. He's looking pretty good. You got a Jacorian Bennett who's coming back. There's other guys like Sam Webb and others who are out there who could come back and have big seasons. But it all comes down to the defensive line as it goes with this Pete Carroll defense. That's my only. I think maybe it was just Pete Carroll winning too many of these battles where it's like win now versus put yourself up to win in the future. And I think finally at the corner position, they did go a little bit bargain basement shopping with the secondary. And they got a couple of guys who, maybe besides Jeremy Chin, they got a couple of guys out there who are like, they have skills, they have traits, but they haven't been able to put it together. Maybe this coach staff can get it out of them. So ultimately, I'll say this. I do think that Pete Carroll's mindset is we need to win and take this as far as we can take it. If that's a Super Bowl, it's a Super Bowl. If as far as we can take it is the championship game, divisional round, whatever, we got to take it as far as we can. And we're not going to accept just winning a couple of more games. We're not going to accept, we won 8 games. We doubled up from last year. That's not a victory. They want to go even further than that. And I fully believe that Pete Carroll is on board for doing that. All right, guys, that's my time for today. Really appreciate you guys watching. Go ahead and like, comment, and subscribe to this video. It's an excellent way to support. It's free to do, and it's the minimum you can do to support besides doing nothing and just watching the video. I do appreciate that, guys. Hit the notification button if you can. That way you are notified whenever I go live or we drop a new video. Also, if you can share this to your socials, it'll really help get the word out. We're doing our best to be able to bring this content to you, so I want to make sure that you guys are doing your part and spreading the word whenever you can. All right, guys, that's it for me. That's my time. Till next time, everybody. Peace.